So here are I wanted to put this in bold and highlight because these are two of the most important takeaway things for you to learn here is that with service dogs, can you ask? We're asked that all the time. A tenant says it's a service dog, can I ask? And so forth. So basically, when it's not obvious, oftentimes, such as with a guide dog, with a person who is visually impaired and needs a guide dog, it's obvious. Okay, this is a service dog. They need a person's visually impaired. Oftentimes, a person may not have a noticeable, detectable disability in which they need a service dog. Okay, so and I'm sure many of you probably have examples in your own life of what that could be that you would need a service dog that wouldn't be as obvious and so forth. So here are the things. When it's not obvious what the service dog provides, there are only two questions that the housing provider, the manager, the landlord, apartment owner can ask. One is that a service dog? And is that service dog necessary because of that tenant's disability? They can't get into asking what the disability is and so forth. But they can ask what's the nexus, basically, what's the connection between what the dog can provide and what the tenant needs that dog to provide. So that brings us into number two. It is permissible to ask what work or task has the dog been trained to perform. Okay? Because a housing provider does have the right to say, I will only allow the service animal, it is a service animal, but there is no requirement that that person present a license to you or a certification that it's a service animal. So oftentimes it may just be the tenant saying it's a service animal. And like I said, especially if their disability is not obvious, these are the questions you can ask, and you do have the right to ask, okay, what task can it perform to be good for you? And I'll get into it a little bit more detail. Okay, so prohibited inquiries and actions with service dogs. These are the things you can't do. So you can't demand information about the person's disability or medical documentation. The medical documentation one is a little bit iffier. There are circumstances where if the person is already, like say for instance, it's already a tenant and they're living there, and this often happens, especially if it's a long-term tenant, because people become disabled, right? They may not have been disabled 20 years ago when they moved in, but now 20 years later, they're living there and they're disabled, and they may get a service animal. And so again, with the service animal, you don't have the right to ask for medical documentation. You do it with the support animals, so I'll get more into that in a minute. You cannot require that the dog have a special identification card or certification or training document or wear a vest. So let me talk about that for a minute, because it's always a little bit confusing to people, because they'll see dogs with different types of vests on, right? Different colors, sometimes they're red, sometimes they're yellow, and all this. They say different things. Sometimes they'll say a service dog and all this. So just so you know, most of those vests and those type of apparels are obtained through private companies that on their own develop their websites, design their vests or whatever, and they market them as being ones that if you purchase them, you can put them on your dog and then you take your dog everywhere. So those companies, I guess, do serve a purpose in that they develop clothing or some type of outward a signal or a sign that that dog is a service dog, but they're not by any means required by law. They're not regulated. They're not. I've seen ones where basically the tenant can just online. They don't have to submit medical verification or anything like that to get it. So all that to say is that you, as a housing provider, don't have to give that any more weight. If the tenant did present a certification or a license or all that, because it may not mean anything other than they went online and they found a company where you paid $100 and got a certificate in the mail. But these are the certain things that you can ask for. You cannot ask for a demonstration of the dog's ability to perform the work of the task. Can't ask. And you can't require that the applicant and the tenant request a reasonable accommodation. So this is the one area where the tenant does not have to make a request for a reasonable accommodation, doesn't have to have a certification or license to show that their dog was trained, doesn't have to have medical verification, and that's if it is a service dog.